Hey there, it's Tom Ryan, founder and CEO of ICR. Before we get into the next episode, I wanted to ask that you subscribe to the show. It'll help us get even more unique and interesting guests on the podcast and in turn continue to educate management teams and the growing ecosystem that creates value for fast-growing private and public companies. And while you're at it, head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star rating. Very much appreciated.
This brand is a very strong cult following to it. And I really had to change my mindset around the brand and marketing the brand, that we didn't want to open on every street corner. This brand wasn't built for that.
When it comes to brand growth and creating a buzz, there's a lot to be said for keeping things unique and playing a little bit hard to get.
We want to open 5 stores a year in very unique locations where people were looking forward for it to coming and going, boy, we got to go there, right? We have to go visit while we're here. It's a destination.
Being a public company can be hard. Small missteps can have outsized consequences. I'm Tom Ryan, founder and CEO of ICR, and over the last 25 years, we've helped thousands of companies understand and navigate the stock market and the media. We'll demystify these and other increasingly complex stakeholder groups so you can focus on what you do best, building your company and unlocking your true potential. This is Welcome to the Arena from ICR. On the surface, successful growth in business might seem to be about rapid expansion, but that's not the right strategy for every business. Growth has to align with the business principles, be at the right pace, and it can't endanger the brand's image and identity along the way. Today's guest has reset his growth strategy to reinforce and preserve that brand identity. We're sitting down with Chris Schultz, CEO of VooDoo Doughnut. Chris has a remarkable track record in expanding renowned brands both nationally and globally, with over 4 decades of industry experience. In the 1990s, he played a vital role in Starbucks' U.S. and international growth, including entry into the UK market. Chris was a founding team member at ModPizza, growing it from 1 store to over 300 locations worldwide. His strategic acumen and leadership made ModPizza a fast casual industry leader. In 2007, as CEO of VooDoo Doughnut, he's tripled the company's size and expanded from 5 to 22 locations in 7 states. Chris has twice been recognized as one of the most innovative and influential CEOs by Nation's Restaurant News, and recently as one of the top 25 food and beverage executives of 2023 by C-Suite magazine. Throughout his career, Chris has consistently demonstrated his ability to build and nurture successful restaurant brands. His innovation, passion, and commitment to exceptional customer experiences makes him a respected industry leader. Let's enter the arena with Chris Schultz.
Obviously, being in the restaurant business for many years, I knew of VooDoo, and I had been down to Portland and stood in line for an hour to get a donut and was amazed that all these people were standing around me to get a donut. And after being at Mod for almost 8.5 years and going from 1 to 350, I was looking for a change, right?
Yeah.
I was just tired. And a friend of mine came to me and said, hey, VooDoo's about to be purchased or get an equity investment and they want to grow their business. And what do you think about potentially going down and taking over VooDoo? And my initial reaction was, I don't want to move to Portland. I was living in Seattle. And I don't want to write a resume because I hadn't written a resume in like 30 years. Now I live in Portland and my resume is on LinkedIn. No, but it was such an amazing opportunity for this really cult brand that I loved and I knew so many people loved, but I just didn't know where they were located. It was like the best kept secret of where's VooDoo Doughnut besides downtown Portland. And it was just an opportunity I just couldn't pass up. And as I thought through my career, what did I have most fun doing? And it was really growing brands, right? It's really taking young brands and growing infrastructure and how do you build that? And I think VooDoo is a perfect case study for that.
Yeah. How long's the brand been around?
So believe it or not, we've been a 21-year brand,
Wow.
right? A 21-year secret. We just celebrated our 21st anniversary in downtown Portland just last month.
Congratulations. And
thank you.
It's got such a cool name that catches you. You never forget it. Talk about the brand's kind of quirky and unique identity, because I've been on the website. It looks so cool. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so the brand was founded by 2 good friends. One was a bartender and one was a band promoter. right? Like nothing like going into the restaurant business. And they just one night over a few beers decided, what is Portland missing? And they thought donuts. Now, they had never been in the restaurant business. They'd never done donuts. And they very quickly educated themselves and opened a donut shop in downtown Portland. The VooDoo name came from one of the founders, Cat Daddy. But yeah, he goes by Cat Daddy. He's from Memphis, and he always wanted to open VooDoo something, right? VooDoo barbecue. And he's like, let's just apply that to donut. And they did, and they opened their first store in downtown Portland and really made a name for them. You have to meet them. They're kind of quirky enough already, and now they're from Portland, right? And so they just started to build this really eclectic brand that didn't take itself too seriously. So made a bunch of donuts. You know, we invented the bacon maple bar, and we know that because Cat Daddy brought bacon to work with him one morning and was frying it up for his breakfast and put it on top of a donut. It was like, damn, that's good. And all of a sudden they started selling it.
Yeah, the sweet salty of it all is so wonderful, right?
It is, and it really got its name for Anthony Bourdain came through Portland one time in one of his early shows, and he wasn't planning coming to VooDoo, and someone says, you got to go try this bacon maple bar. And as the story goes, they're part of his television show that you see him kind of dreaming of this bacon maple bar. And then moving forward, they put NyQuil on a donut one time. Right? They got a NyQuil donut. And that lasted for about a day till the government came in and said, hey, that recommendation isn't a recommendation on a bottle. You can't put medicine on a food product. And like promoters that they were, they went to the local paper and said, hey, we're just a local donut shop. And, you know, the federal government's trying to shut us down. And they got publicity for that. And we put Pepto-Bismol on a donut. We did oyster donut. They've just tried a little bit of everything. And we've continued in that vein as we move forward.
That's so cool. And is that really the key differentiator of VooDoo? Certainly the unique donuts that you make, but is it just kind of the brand and that customer connection that's your key differentiator? What else would you kind of put into that bucket of like why we're different?
Well, first off, we offer 41 different flavors of donuts, including 12 different vegan offerings. We have the very traditional donut, the glazed donut, that kind of the entry level, right? But we have everything from an Old Dirty Bastard, right? That we named after Old Dirty Bastard.
That's like the ultimate honor, right? Getting a donut named after you.
Yeah, especially since, I think in the past he wasn't known for a lot of good things. Now he had a donut named after him.
Yeah.
We have the Memphis Mafia, right? We have really unique offerings that, again, you can get your very traditional donut, but you can get a variety that you've never seen before. The other part about VooDoo is when you come in our stores, they look nothing like a donut shop, right? We have chandeliers, and the donuts are in spinner glass jewelry cases, so we don't rack them like a traditional donut shop when you walk in our stores. All of our stores are pink. The music playing overhead is chosen by the people in the store. So if you're in a store in Houston, it's very different than being in a store in Denver, but yet it all feels the same. It's just very eclectic and very unique onto where it's located.
Cool. You know, you've had a lot of really cool experiences like at Starbucks and Mod and whatever. Like when you kind of came in and got under the hood and says like, what does this company need? How did all that experience go into shaping your approach to kind of scaling this up? You know, to what you have today, and then certainly, you know, more expansion in the future.
Yeah, I think part of it was really recognizing this brand is a very strong cult following to it. And so where in the past, at both Starbucks and Mod, we were looking to be on every street corner, right? Literally every street corner you would find a Starbucks or Mod. This brand wasn't built for that, right? It's a destination. And so it's very unique about VooDoo is I really got here, my initial reaction was, wow, we should be everywhere.
Yeah.
And then as I started to unpack that and started to realize there's this really strong cult following, and boy, on every street corner, we would almost take that and make it a little bit more ubiquitous, right? And really not make it a destination. As I think through it, it's almost like, you know, when you think about a movie star, Tom Cruise comes out with one movie a year. He doesn't come out with 10.
Yeah.
And so people wait to go to see that movie because they're expecting it's a Tom Cruise movie. Yeah. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
And I really had to change my mindset around the brand and marketing the brand, that we didn't want to open on every street corner. We wanted to open 5 stores a year in very unique locations where people were looking forward for it to coming and going, boy, we got to go there, right? We have to go visit VooDoo while we're here. If you visit VooDoo in Portland and you go to the airport, everyone's carrying pink boxes through the airport. right? It's like carrying a puppy. People stop you and go, where'd that come from? They know the brand. We've been on so many Man versus Food and the Food Network and all those places that you normally find very eclectic brands. But I wanted to make sure that we were respectful to what the brand initially was and what the founders really thought they wanted to grow it to.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, having analyzed the restaurant business for a long time, not being an operator, a lot of times you just get into this growth mindset where you're just trying to stamp shit out, like just relentlessly 20 this year, 30 next year, 40 next year, 50 next year, and you kind of lose something in the process. And you can still build value by going a little bit slower, and it's probably even more sturdy.
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, listen, Mod, when I was at Mod, was one of the fastest growing restaurant companies for 3 straight years. We're opening 80, 90 stores a year.
Yeah.
And listen, it's a high, right? Opening new stores, you start to forget the fact that people have to come, right? And they have to recognize the brand. And for, again, VooDoo, I didn't want to become ubiquitous. I didn't want someone to drive by the store and go, oh, that's a pink building and that's Starbucks or that's Mod. Right? You drive by a pink building, it's VooDoo. You're like, oh my goodness, it's a VooDoo Doughnut. We have to go there. And people come from far and wide to visit our stores. And we feel very blessed in that instance, and especially today with social media, right? I mean, we have 250,000 followers, and I think over half don't live near a VooDoo store, but yet they're following us on social media.
Yeah, that's so cool. What's your mindset on expansion? A lot of concepts will kind of start here. They'll do like a hub and spoke in a regional area. It seems like you're really looking for very unique locations regardless of where they are, right?
Yeah, it feels pretty schizophrenic. And it really, if anyone was to study it, to be like, how is this company growing, not hub and spoking it, right? What do they do? We have one store in Dallas. We have one store in San Antonio. We have one store in Tempe. We have one store in Boulder, Colorado. One store in Chicago currently. And my peer group calls me and goes, what are you doing? Like, you've broken the model of what we do. And what I found is when you find really good people, they're going to run your stores and they're going to bring the brand to life.
Yep.
And so, again, being destination locations, you'll find us in areas where, high traffic volume with either high restaurants or nightclubs or tourism, right? Where people kind of congregate.
Yeah. And what you're doing in the meantime is you're kind of proving the portability of it across, the country. And that's always a huge thing about creating value. Does the concept travel? Well, you're proving that it does already, which is really amazing for you guys.
Yeah, and we're building company-operated stores. So we have 4 licensed stores in traditional areas where you wouldn't find us, right? So we're on Universal Studios City Walk in both Orlando and LA. And we're in the Denver airport and we're in the Nashville airport. So those are locations where you wouldn't normally find a brick and mortar company store, but all the rest of the stores are company owned and operated. And we really think that's the best way of doing it currently for the VooDoo brand.
The concept obviously started important a long time ago, but how has VooDoo kind of evolved to meet changing consumer tastes over the last couple of decades? I would imagine you've seen there's been a lot of change over that period of time.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, pre-COVID, we only took cash.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So forever we had ATMs in the store. We only took cash in all of our stores. And when I first got here, I got here in November and I was like, well, okay, we only take cash. Like right. We don't take credit cards. We don't do any online ordering. We do nothing. And they're like, no, we're good. Just cash.
Yeah.
So that was step one, right? Is to try to get at least up to where we take credit cards.
Yeah.
But the other part is what we've done, and this was an aha moment for me, was we kind of got lost, I think, early on, or right before COVID, we weren't innovating, right? We weren't innovating and we weren't bringing out LTOs, and we kind of got caught up in this sense of, we're being successful, so why put all the effort and energy to come up with a new flavor profile or something for people to talk about? And then right out of COVID, the reality was, man, oh man, we got to put something out there for people to talk about because they're not coming in our stores. So, we really devoted ourselves to LTOs and to developing a new donut. So every month we have a brand new donut coming out. That's very VooDoo. Right now we have our Neapolitan donut, right? That's very unique and very different. We could talk about it on our social media platforms. We could talk about it in the stores. Our folks behind the counter could talk about it, get excited about it. That's where the difference has really been made for us, is getting back to our core, which is quality donuts made in-house and very unique, very different that you're not going to find somewhere else.
Yeah. And I would imagine as part of that innovation, you're listening to customers constantly. Is there a time when a customer, like their input maybe led to a breakthrough in the products that you're offering?
Yeah. I've got a great story about that. This is one of the things where, as a CEO, you think you know everything.
Yeah.
And I had that aha moment when I first got here. I started looking at in traditional, right? CEO, I come in, break down the SKU rat, tell me the donuts we're selling, the donuts we're not selling. And I said, why are we selling vegans? Like, they're not in the top 10. Like, we should just stop selling vegan donuts, right? It doesn't make sense. They're expensive. They're hard to manage. And so I put forth, fist on the table, we're not going to sell vegan donuts. That lasted for about a week, right? We put out a message, vegan donuts no more. And I'll tell you, the vegan following just killed me.
Yeah.
They just
at least you got publicity out of it, right?
Right. But they're like, how dare you take away these vegan donuts? And that's one of those aha moments as a CEO where you think you're the smartest man in the room. You're not, right? You're not. You have to listen to your customers. And so we now offer 12 different vegan offerings, right? We lean into it to make sure that we're offering it for those consumers. And it's not an everyday consumer. It's uniquely different, but we have to be respectful of what brought us to today. And that was a great moment for me where I just got that moment of, hey, wait a minute, this is a different brand, and you have to listen to the consumers that come here.
Yeah.
And don't get so full of yourself that you think you know everything, and numbers don't tell the full story.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to listen to your customers.
VooDoo's store atmosphere is an important way they've built the brand, and one of the key elements that brings that to life is their people. I asked Chris how VooDoo finds its employees and how Chris keeps them motivated and engaged in the business over time.
Yeah, number one, we're very authentic and very transparent at VooDoo. We've been very blessed here and very fortunate. We've never had staffing issues in any of our stores, ever. Through all these challenges, we've been staffed in all of our stores. And I think it's a combination of things. Number one, we let people be people. So we don't have uniforms. We don't wear name tags. We let people bring themselves to work, their genuine self to work every day.
Yeah.
And our people behind the counter look like our donuts, right? We have 41 different unique flavors. We have 41 different unique flavors of people in our stores.
Yeah.
And we embrace that, right? I'm so surprised by brands today that go out and say, boy, our people are embracing diversity in that. And my comment is, when didn't you?
Yeah.
Why didn't you in the beginning? Why is that now a selling point of your brand? You're telling me what, you didn't choose certain people to come work in your stores based on something? And I've heard brands come out with that, and I'm like, I'm not sure that's a good marketing twist, but fair enough, that's what you've chosen. But at VooDoo, we've always kind of just embraced the fact of bring yourself to work. We make donuts in our stores every single day, so we don't ship them out. They don't come from a commissary. We make them fresh in stores every single day. We're open 24 hours in almost all of our locations. Now, I say that we close from 3 to 5 a.m. because, as my mom taught me, nothing good happens after 3 a.m. But the other part is we spend a bunch of time as well during our training around the brand and marketing and who we are. We have a very small marketing group. We don't pay for advertising. We don't have an agency. We do everything internally. And part of it is we have 700 marketers in our stores every day. And it's very important for us that we embrace that. We don't measure throughput. So I don't measure how long it takes for someone to ring up a donut and move them through the line.
Yeah.
Now, in my former life, that was a big key. In this life, I had to, again, learn that moment of, if you're going to stand in line for 30 minutes, you better take your time at the counter.
Yeah.
And let people take their time, and it's a respite. So I think that's part of the brand and part of what we do so well is when you come to VooDoo, it doesn't look like a donut shop. The music's going to be a little different. The person behind the counter may be a little different than you, may not, but it's really that interesting meeting of the two things, right? We're kind of the dive bar of donut shops.
The one thing I wanted to ask you is you're kind of dispersed geographically. Mm-hmm. Every store kind of has its own vibe, but I have to imagine you want consistency and taste and quality of the donuts that you serve. And so,
of course,
how do you say, hey, look, everybody's unique, you bring it to light, but we want to be serving the same thing to everybody every day?
Yeah. Well, of course we have recipes. I mean, I kind of like the fact when some people think about VooDoo and think we're just up here in Portland, come up with crazy donuts and just, everybody do their own thing. No, we do have recipes and we do follow recipes. Now, when we talk about our LTOs, people ask me, does your culinary team come up with that? Do you have a culinary? No. We have a group of folks that are in the office that bring to my office every 2 weeks, like 10 different, 15 different donuts. We all taste them. And then we decide which one's great. We tweak a little bit here and there, and then we send out a recipe. And, we have a very traditional oversight in our stores to make sure that we have consistency from one product to the next. And again, last year we served over 2.5 million folks in our stores. That's a huge number. Right now, what we're focused on is making sure the experience comes to life in every way you buy Voodoo. So whether it's through third party or online pickup or in the store, it should be the same experience. And I'm sure a lot of folks listen to your podcast order from third party and you're disappointed.
Yeah.
Right? You go to the store or the restaurant and you buy something and you get it home, you're like, it's not the same. And we're working really hard on that currently inside of our stores, from everything, the way we box them, the way we ensure everything's there, because I think that's important. I mean, that part of the business is here to stay. It's not going away.
Yep. Yeah. And another big thing and trend, and obviously every company's a technology company now, other than going from cash to credit cards, how has technology played into Voodoo, or how do you foresee it playing into your business in the next 5 years?
Yeah, well, cash or credit card was a huge step.
Yep.
But, I'm a big believer in process, people, systems. I just believe in, first we build a process, we find the right people to run it, and then we find systems that'll support those processes based on what we need. And so for us, obviously social media we have to be involved in, right? We have no choice. And we have a full-time social media person who's phenomenal and understands it, understands exactly what's in there. And she every day reminds me that I have no idea what I'm doing in it, and just let her run with it. We lean in there. We're starting to try to understand our customer a little bit better. And I think that's a big part of technology that we'll start to get a little bit more understanding of. I think in the retail business, all of us want to understand our customers better.
Yep.
And we're kind of struggling, I think, around how do we do that? How far do they come from? How often do they come? All those metrics that would be great to know.
Yep.
But yet we're all struggling with that a little bit. So then the final piece of that is this new AI.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard about this thing called AI, Tom.
Yeah.
It's new. I hear it's out there.
I hear it's transitory.
Yeah, I hear it's a thing. I'm just being reminded of it every day when I come in. But, really starting to lean into AI and trying to understand how that can help us better understand the business. And instead of putting in a bunch of systems and processes, really leaning into that a lot, but more to understand how that can help us understand our business and where we should be going. And, I think, again, as I've heard, it's a tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. Yeah. Who knows what's going to happen in the next 5 years, but you got to be open to it. You got to learn. And you know what? Maybe you don't want to be the first one out there doing something revolutionary, but you sure have to be on your game, because it could change everything very quickly. It seems like it, right?
Yeah. I learned a lesson back at Starbucks when we talk about price increase, right? Don't be the first, but don't be the last.
Yeah. There you go.
Right. And so AI is the same way. Right. And I think especially for a company of our size, and so many people have companies of our size out there, you have to lean into things that are out there that quote unquote are free today, but to start to understand how you can leverage it to make your business better. And I think those folks that are not leaning into it, shame on you. I think that's what's going to happen. And so we're leaning a lot into that, really starting to educate ourselves around how it can make us better, not only in the business, but marketing and communications, all those things that, again, 5 years from now, I think it's going to be a topic of conversation on many of these podcasts of what are you doing?
Yeah. You're going to have your little AI assistant. You're going to say, I want a donut. And the answer better be Voodoo.
Right. Well, listen, we put in right now, we use it to name our donuts. Hey, here's the ingredients, come up with some names. And, what used to take us weeks, now it takes us, 30 minutes.
So cool.
And here's a list of names that are really cool. And so I think for us, when you talk about technology, I think that's the way the brand's going. And I think so many brands will be going that way. I'm not sure that any of us are willing to talk about it yet, because we just don't understand it.
Yeah, of course. Look, you're on top of it, though, and that's the most important thing. Another cool thing you're doing is VooDoo Doughnut's Giving Donuts program. What's the philosophy behind that? Why is it so important to kind of the brand mission?
So here's the important part of that. Our folks are in our stores and they're working 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week, or they're working 2 jobs, or they can't afford to give back to charities that they really want to give back to, or nonprofits that they'd really like to give back to, because they just can't afford it. And so part of our relationships are giving back on their behalf. So as we talk about it, when we're selling right now, we're at Alex's lemonade stand, right? That helps childhood cancer.
Yeah.
Every time they sell that donut, we're giving a portion, part of the proceeds back to that nonprofit. Well, all the people in the store, they're selling that donut on behalf of that nonprofit. So we're in turn, where they couldn't give back, we're giving back on their behalf. And so I think it's an important element, not only obviously to support the communities we work in, but it also helps remind the 700 people that work for us, that work with us, we're donating on their behalf because they're actually making that donut, they're selling that donut, and a part of all their hard work goes to giving back to that nonprofit.
Yeah, that's just awesome. And such an important part of every company right now. I'm sure you've had a lot of successes at the company, but if I said, hey, give me your biggest success so far since joining VooDoo as the CEO, what would you say?
I measure my success based on my failures. It's something I learned so long ago, right? Don't count your successes, count your failures because you're trying, right? You're trying things. You're taking risks and you're thinking outside the box. And so when you ask me about successes, listen, right now we employ 700 people plus. For me, that's a success, right? We're ensuring that people can pay their bills and take care of their families and go to work and have healthcare, affordable healthcare. That to me is at the end of the day, the most important thing we do and the most important thing I do. I grew up in the restaurant business. I've never had another job. I didn't go to college, right? I just worked in restaurants my whole life. And so for me, my success is just that. Is the fact that there's someone out there today, perhaps working for us, who's a 25-year-old me, who's aspiring to become something. And ultimately, there's an opportunity there. And so for me, that's the thing that we do that I'm most happy about, most thrilled about. I could talk all day long about our failures. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Every day I kind of remind myself about failures. We ran a donut that we thought was really cool because it was very on trend. It was mango and tahini, right? Really cool. And it was my idea. I'm like, tahini's so cool. Let's put on a mango donut. It'll be the funnest thing. And it was like the emperor's new clothes, right? It was like, oh yeah, the donut tastes great.
Yeah.
It was a terrible donut. Like we didn't sell any of them.
That's so funny. I couldn't agree with you more. Like the quicker you can fail, you can make mistakes. Don't make the huge mistake, but making little mistakes along the way makes the organization evolve. It makes you evolve, right?
I had to remind the team that not every idea I have is a good one, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, Chris, but we really didn't like that donut, but you were so excited about it. We sold it for a month, and I'm looking at sales. I'm like, the donut's not selling. And finally, Taylor, our head of marketing, came over and said, the donut's not very good. And I was like, what? It's not very good. Like people come to VooDoo for the cereal and the Instagrammable donuts and the fun. And she's like, people can't pronounce tahini and no one likes mango. Yeah, but they're on trend. I've been reading all the reports. I've been on the internet. Like they're trending. She's like, yeah, well, maybe somewhere, but not here. So, that's a small, it's a donut mistake, but when you're in a donut business, that's an error.
Hey, nobody bats 1,000, right? I have one final question for you, Chris. What advice would you have given yourself 20 years ago?
I talked to groups of high schoolers and they always ask that question. They always ask that question. And my answer to that is that you're good enough. You're good enough, right? Trust yourself and you're good enough. Because, to me, I think 20 years ago, I was still questioning, is the restaurant business right for me? And I was learning, right? I was making a lot of mistakes back then. And I was fortunate to have a lot of folks around me, mentors and leaders who continue to let me make mistakes, right? And there was times in my life where I looked up, I was like, oh, this is never going to work. But they let me make mistakes. And I would remind myself that you're good enough and just stay the course, right? Be committed to it.
With Chris's leadership, VooDoo Doughnut has grown and modernized while maintaining its signature personality. Their thoughtful strategies and in-house service reflect the roots they were founded on. With individuality at the core of their brand, they've kept their product range fresh and different, and they're celebrating the diversity of their staff while staying on top of tech trends. Merging these elements isn't easy, but for VooDoo, it's strengthening their unique brand identity. At Welcome to the Arena from ICR, we're working really hard to bring you exciting guests and great content. If you found this episode insightful, please subscribe to the show on your podcast app and leave us a 5-star rating. The more the show grows, the more interesting voices we can have on the podcast, and in turn, that should demystify a lot of the stakeholders around public companies and soon-to-be public companies. Thank you so much for listening. I'd like to thank our guest, Chris Schultz, for joining me today. VooDoo Doughnut knows their audience and their history. By keeping these in the forefront of their business, they have made no sacrifices and left plenty of room for growth. This is Tom Ryan. We'll see you next time back in the arena.
References to specific stocks are not intended to be recommendations for specific trading behavior. Comments presented on this podcast are intended for informational and educational purposes only, and do not represent opinions or recommendations on whether to buy, sell, or hold shares of a particular stock. All investors are advised to conduct their own independent research into individual stocks before making a trading decision. In addition, investors are advised that past stock performance is no guarantee of future price performance.